agenda issue.
Jen, do you want to try to plug into our wall socket and switch to...
We've got one back here if you want to try this one. Or you just want to talk about what you have and people can go to the website and pull up your...
That's probably simplest.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Hunter, is John online or not, or
He is not.
he's not?
No, he just pinged in. He says, I will be unable to attend tonight.
Okay. So we'll continue without him. All right, 6:30, welcome. This is the Newport Board of Selectmen's meeting for September 20th, 2021. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, I was considering asking the chief to lead us, but we would have had dueling chiefs in that case. All right, next up, swearing in and introduction of new police officer, Chief Wilmot.
Thank you. Well, you were going to have to listen to me for the Pledge of Allegiance, but I prepared a 3-hour speech to kick off this meeting this evening. So
Just give us the cliff notes.
buckle in. So we're here this evening to celebrate our hiring of Matthew Twining. Matthew comes to us from Arlington, New Jersey, so southern New Jersey. He's a United States Marine Corps veteran. He holds an associate's degree in science. He's currently pursuing his bachelor's degree in criminal justice. He was a frontline healthcare worker at the outset of the COVID-19 pandemic. And this evening, joined with Matthew is, in order, and this is my test too, is his girlfriend Hannah is sitting right next to him, his mom Deborah, and then his sister Emily on the far side.
Welcome.
So, just a couple things about the process first, just to give you a little bit of an overview on that. So, we posted this position in early July of this year on our police app portal that we have. Matthew submitted his application materials and we almost immediately had a phone conversation. He said that he was interested in moving to New Hampshire, talked about his enthusiasm for the outdoors and all the great things that we have to offer here in Western New Hampshire. So, we made an appointment to meet. We met, I think, probably about a week later. Prior to us actually meeting, he went took it past a physical fitness test, and then we met that afternoon, and shortly thereafter, we kind of got to know him, he got to know us. We felt, at least from the early meeting of him, that he would be a good fit for us. So we continued on with the process. Next up was the polygraph, which he took and passed. Following that, we did a comprehensive background investigation. So we talked to past employers, family members, friends, academic records, credit report, all that good stuff. And at the end of that, he was recommended for hire. During the process of the background, he came up to Newport a couple more times. He did a ride along with some of our staff. And we tried, I think I've mentioned this before. Well, if I haven't, I'll mention it now. But sort of the goal is maximum exposure of the candidate to all of our employees. And, we may not necessarily be looking for the best person every time, but we're always looking for the right person. And as luck would have it, I think we got both in one with Matt. So he made it to the end of that process. We were fortunate to get a conditional offer of employment from the town manager. After that, he did a psychological and a medical examination, all of which was in his favor. So he got the offer and started with us about a week and a half ago. He's already had an immediate impact on the culture. He's got a sort of a eager, infectious attitude. He's willing to learn anything, and he's already recruiting other friends of his from New Jersey that were police officers down there to come up here and give us a try. So we're excited about him. I think he's excited about us. He's grew a mustache for this occasion, so for that,
Always a good sign.
I salute him, right? So without further ado, I'd like to have him come up and swear him in.
Good.
person of attention.
Be it easy.
Do you want to do that?
Well, you can read it, 'cause
Okay.
I don't know what that means.
Okay. So whereas there is a vacancy as a full-time police officer in the town of Newport, and the town manager having confidence in your ability and integrity to perform the duties of said office, he hereby appoints you, Matthew Twining, as a full-time police officer in the Newport Police Department, and upon taking your oath of office and having this appointment and certificate of said oath of office recorded by the town clerk, you should have the powers, perform the duties, and be subject to the liabilities of such office until another person shall be chosen or appointed and qualified in your stead. Understand that?
Yes.
All right. So, without further ado, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Matthew Twining, do solemnly swear
I, Matthew Twining, do solemnly swear
that I will bear faith and true allegiance
that I will bear faith and true allegiance
to the United States of America and the state of New Hampshire,
to the United States of America and the state of New Hampshire,
and will support the constitutions thereof.
and to support the constitutions thereof.
So help me
So
God.
help me God.
I, Matthew Twining, do solemnly and sincerely swear
I, Matthew Twining, do solemnly and sincerely swear
that I will faithfully and impartially discharge and perform
that I faithfully and impartially discharge and perform
all duties incumbent on me as a full-time police officer in the Newport Police Department
all duties incumbent on me and
as
as a police officer in the town of Newport,
according to the best of my abilities,
according to the best of my abilities,
agreeably to the rules and regulations
agreeing to the rules and regulations
of this Constitution
of this Constitution
and laws of the state of New Hampshire.
and laws of the state of New Hampshire.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Chief.
So as the final act of getting him on board, I'm going to ask if you want to shake his hand.
Congratulations, sir.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir.
Congratulations and
Thank you,
welcome.
sir.
Welcome aboard.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
All right, so I would invite Hannah. His girlfriend's going to come up and pin his badge on his chest. We did have a little instructional period prior to this. Matt, if you want to just kind of scooch towards the front.
Yeah, this
Turn
vest
a little
on,
bit.
right, so we won't get too
Yeah,
much
go.
blood.
Well, we hope, you know what I mean? I tried to help Hannah through this a little bit, but, yeah. Oh, good. All right, congratulations. He's been told that he has to extemporate now for the next several minutes, so. Is there something that you'd like to say as a Marine?
Thank you all. Thank you all for, I appreciate it, this position. I'm looking forward to starting my career in Newport. We love it here so far. Been moved here about a month so far.
Oh, good.
Love the community. I'm ready for it. I'm ready to start my career here.
So what is the next step? Is academy?
So, well, it's an interesting question. I don't know. And I should, right? So he technically has a Class 2 certification as a police officer in the state of New Jersey.
Okay.
And so we have applied to get a waiver from the New Hampshire Police Academy so that he wouldn't actually have to go. And that he would just have to take the law package, which essentially means he has to learn New Hampshire's laws and procedures for executing law enforcement functions. So that's where we're at. In the interim, he's training and we're getting to know the towns, and he got to investigate a motor vehicle crash today. So we're full immersion. So
Good.
we're hoping that we don't have to go to 16 weeks of residential police academy, and we can bypass that. But time will tell.
Well, hopefully.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks for having us.
Thank you,
I-
Chief.
I appreciate you.
Thank you for coming in.
allowing us to
Thank you,
do-
gentlemen. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Take care.
Now, you've been recording all this with your body cam, right?
No, green is good. Green is good.
Okay. Good. That was good. We should just end on that note.
So moved.
Moving on, agenda review. Barry?
I'm all set.
Keith? Anything?
I'm all set with everything.
Herb?
All set.
One thing I want to do, actually a couple things. First, I want to move the Sugar River Valley Regional Technical Center update up to just after the agenda review, so we don't keep the director here. And perhaps after that, we can do the fire alarm ordinance, so we do not have to keep the fire chief here. Hunter?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, if you wouldn't mind, if you would indulge me with a brief executives non-public session relating to pending litigation,
Okay,
that would be great.
all right. What is that? Which letter is that? Litigation? Oh, let me look it up.
Yeah.
All right. All right, anything else, Hunter?
No, thank you.
Are you here for the solar?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Would you like to move that up too?
Yeah. I think he would.
I would.
All right.
Possible.
Yeah, we can, all right, why don't we move that up after, right, in case we have anyone here for open forum, I don't want to hold them up too. Litigation is RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, small e.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I'm not sure Turkey Hill is going to be an item on your list of action items tonight.
Okay.
We've yet to receive final approval of documents from our attorney.
So just be an informational, if that?
I guess that would be up to them if they want to have anything to report, but
Okay.
we believe everything is in order, but I've yet to receive all of the final documents from our attorney.
Okay. All right,
So what were you thinking you were here for tonight?
It was my understanding that I was here for approval of those documents. I didn't realize you hadn't gotten them yet.
Right.
Okay.
So, and there's a pile of them, and they're fairly extensive.
Okay.
Very similar to the ones you saw on the solar array
All
for
right,
North Newport.
so we won't have any action item, but if you'd like to speak or make a comment during open forum.
There's nothing to really say.
Okay.
Okay.
You know,
So you get an early evening.
Yeah.
All right. You're welcome to stay if you want, just see how government works, but,
Thank you.
all right, thanks for coming by. All right. Jennifer
Opalinsky.
Opalinsky. I always mess it up, and I apologize. All right, just a little background. Well, I'll let you do it. You do it better than I could do it, so come on up, sit or stand, whatever's comfortable.
I'll just give you, everyone has a copy, but I'll hand out this hard copy for you guys so that you can see it.
Okay, do you have any for the public?
And then the presentation you'll be able to find on our website, the Sugar River website. NCTV also has it available, and we just didn't want to fool with the technology, so maybe next time I'll put it on the screen. But
Okay.
tonight we wanted to make sure you could see everything in the public
If
eye.
anyone well, leave one here for John, I guess.
Sounds good. So thank you for inviting me back. I really appreciate it because we have some exciting updates.
Oh,
You didn't get one?
Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go. La Valley Brunswick Architects has completed a concept that we believe is the right fit concept for the tech center. Jeff, thank you very much for acting on our renovation advisory committee, and he continues to work with us to try to find that right fit project. So about a month and a half ago, we got cost estimates from Harvey Construction for what I would consider is the absolute best scenario project that came in at $19 million. And so we all sort of had a heart attack and said, okay, well, that's not going to work. This was the committee's decision, mine and the crew, that is just too high of a project for Newport. So we took probably about 6 weeks. We went back to the table. We cut things. We re-examined. We relocated. It had been our original hope to sort of have a community-oriented center with sort of our cosmetology, our business, welding, automotive, anything the community could access in one pod. But because of the amount of renovation that would take, the costs were extremely high. And even things like bringing the cosmetology salon down to the first floor for public access was a great idea. But because it has a cement slab and you'd have to put in plumbing, the price, it saved us like $1 to $2 million by moving it back upstairs. So those are the types of things we did to try to save money and lower the cost of the project. With the target cost being about 10 million and the overall project cost being about 13.8. At our last RAC meeting, and when we were talking to the school board, Harvey Construction went back after our concepts, after we had made some cuts and made some changes to try to get it down to 10 million. And they said, your total project, which I'll use the term 13.8 because that includes all of the costs, is not at 13.8, it's still at like 15.8. And that's down from 19, which is moving in the right direction, but it's not quite there. So Jeff will attest, we are looking at the design now. We're hoping construction costs drop because it's really hard at this point to figure out where do you cut. How are we going to get to 10 million? The good news is that we do believe we could get there, and the RAC committee is going to move us in that direction. We have what we would consider a right fit project, and we've got some design concepts on the first page. It's showing the first floor, which I'll just turn to that page myself to make sure I'm looking at what you look at. Done is like a puzzle. So we took all of our programs, we looked at what needed to be where, and we've repositioned them to make them work by kind of moving them around. So our priorities, we started with welding, which is our most needed renovated space, probably. That's the biggest one that needs a hand. Health science comes in a close second, followed by animal science. So we started by expanding welding, and if we expand that in place, it kind of saves us a lot of money. We expand right down from its existing weld shop right into animal science. We move animal science across the street over to natural resources and forestry, which is a perfect pair. So now your horticulture, animal science, and natural resources all land together in their own building with the greenhouse, aquaponics, the plants, everything that you need there, plus the forest right in the background, so you can do all of your milling, you can do your sugar house, a boiling of sap, you can store all of your equipment, you can run a tractor without it being too noisy, so not bringing that back down to the main area. And by moving animal plant science, a way to move business. We get business out of the way to where plant science was, and now you can move engineering downstairs with very little cost. When you move engineering, which is on the second floor, so that we can add LNA, a better EMT space, and an adult education space. So again, it's like a puzzle. By moving engineering down into our businesses, you get room for health science. Again, expanding health science where it is saves money. Leaving cosmetology on the second, innovating in place saves money. Putting programs together so they can work together is also just excellent educational practice. So now engineering, welding, and automotive technologies will all be in the same area. So and really emulate what industry is asking us for. A couple other features that I think the community would like. I mean, if seeing that the fire chief is here, you work with us a great deal with EMT and our health science program. So you could probably see how the lab we have is nice, but there's a real life EMT scenario going into a home, right? Yeah. From your perspective, are there things that you could see being beneficial to expanding the health science program?
I think, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry.
So I think that the health science program and the EMT program could use expanding. And from what I understand from Mr. Perry up there is that there's people enrolled and there's a waiting list to get into this stuff. We have taken the EMTs into the station and they've done their ride time with us and they've done their practicums with us. I think we've gotten 2 from the course that have shown interest in coming on board. But I think that's a real need. If you look around at Dartmouth, the hospital, Valley, and New London, they're looking for people. LNAs are in a big need. So anything we can do to expand that program, I think, is great. And I should call you, we have a stretcher or cot we want to give there.
Thank you very, very much, yes. So the collaboration with the businesses in the community really help us with the right fit programs and where it is that we should be putting our money in this renovation. A couple of other great things for Newport that make this just perfect timing. So as you already know, we have the state funding coming our way. So up to 75% of the cost of the renovation and construction project is covered by the state. We apply for it, we explain the project, we explain why it's the right fit project. I knock on the doors of places like the fire department and the police department, et cetera, and I ask if they would write a letter on behalf of the tech center saying that these programs are vital to the community, that these programs are important so that we have the employees we need for workforce development, and then that application gets submitted on January 1st. Or before, which is really nice. So that puts us in line for the funding. The ESSER grant, which is a federal fund that you see pouring into schools, Ed Emond is our business administrator. He believes that there is $2.5 million toward the community share of the project that could be applied to the community portion. We're going to be checking with the state, and by the end of September, I should have an answer for you as to whether or not that 2.5 could apply. So that's a huge windfall, because if you're trying to get the community support, which we need 25% support in order for the state to say yes to 75, if we can apply the ESSER funds, then that lowers the community portion to probably between $1 and $2 million, which can then come from donations from organizations that may have equipment they want to give us that can be applied. We're looking at other grants. We can also ask for charitable donations. We can do a bond vote. There's 100 ways we could get to that extra funding. So the ESSER funds, if everyone just keep their fingers crossed. I don't have an answer yet, but the state basically has to give us the okay, the green light, so that we can then say to you for sure, hopefully at the next meeting, that 2.5 million can be applied. So it's like we're almost there, and it's almost unbelievable. I mean, I do want to knock on wood, because if that came through, then the community ask is relatively low in comparison to the overall project, and you could be looking at, let's just say, a $15 million project with 2.5 from ESSER, and you're down to which is pretty much the cost to just redo a few roofs, when you're looking at infrastructure and upgrades, which will eventually fall on the community. So I kind of can't believe it, and I also want to thank you, because if this is the part of the community revitalization and these upgrades that we're trying to see in the community, and this time, if we're able to move it forward, I feel like what a gift. So thank you for that, and I would really love to answer any questions, and to point that at the end of this handout, there are just some facts about the project. Pretty much I went over why the design is the way it is. But I just outlined the ESSER funding that we're looking at, the application process, the community vote on March 8th, things like that. So I wonder if there are any other questions from you or the community?
You used the term across the street. Is that the old pig farm?
So where Natural Resources is now, yes.
Okay.
So they would basically take that down. It's
they're gonna
kind
take
of a
it down?
prefab building. That one would come down.
Okay.
And another building, it would be the only new construction, but a new building would go in its place to make room for animal science, horticulture, greenhouse.
Are they going to expand the footprint?
It would expand to fit all of that and the storage.
Because that was a well-built building.
The one across the street?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's nothing, honestly, everything that you guys have done for this tech center over the last 30 years is awesome. Well, a couple of things just so that you're aware. The building would be relocated closer to the road, not relocated, but built closer to the road. So when you think about, if anyone has walked up to the Natural Resources building, if you were in a wheelchair, you are struggling. So accessibility would be very much improved. Safety would be improved because we create a very definitive walkway across the street and bring it down pretty much to street level. that's one advantage. And then when you have things like the plant sale or your even boiling maple syrup, things like that, that sugar house would move a little, but pretty much you'd have everything on the same property. Right now, the horticulture building is across the street with the greenhouse, like it's on the main campus, which is fabulous when you walk by and, you can see the greenhouse right there, but it's really not great educationally. And the aquaponics, these amazing tilapia tanks that are sitting up there in natural resources, in the snow, the kids are just not traipsing up there all the time to take care of them, so natural resources does that as part of their curriculum. But the horticulture and animal science could completely add a whole science component by being closer in proximity. So those types of things will really benefit the education of the community, adult education opportunities, access to the programs, and business students would pretty much run the show. So when you want your oil changed, the business program is now like front facing for the community. You want to have your hair cut, you have this place where the students can interact with you and do online sales and online appointments, and then they will be the one interfacing as the customer service person, which if any of you are running businesses, you can probably imagine it's really nice to have students who already know some basic community customer service skills. So we're hoping that'll be a big advantage for the students too, to interact with the community face to face.
And by having natural science and horticulture together in their own building across the driveway,
Yeah.
it allows the other programs to expand within the existing footprint, which keeps the cost
Yeah, I
down.
think it's a good plan.
Yeah. Yeah, it is like a puzzle. You move one and you make room, and then but it's worked out really, really well. And again, we are going to work hard to continue to bring the cost down, but it's just nice to be completely transparent. We are slicing and dicing the best we can. We're kind of at this point where we're going to look further. You guys are welcome to look, and we can send the cost estimates from Harvey, which outlines every little thing, the cost of all the details. But this 15 million number is where we're at right now with the project we think is the best fit.
So with this expansion, will that have any effect on numbers in terms of students who can get into programs, things of that nature? So I know you got a waiting list.
We have waiting lists in all the programs
Yeah.
almost, and our sending schools, we're working on some things to make sure we can access more sending schools and the tuition that comes from that as well.
Yeah.
So the health science is a perfect example. If we can create the space, we could have an LNA program and a health science program running at the same time during the school day. Right now, we offer LNA at night, which is great for some, but if you're into sports and all these other things, it's actually really hard to add an adult program or a night program to your roster. So some do, but we could probably double the number of LNAs we graduate. We could also run EMT at night, so you could run day EMT and night EMT, and there are plenty of people to fill those programs. I would say we have opportunity for expansion in welding, because right now
good.
we can
Yeah.
only have 12 to 14 seats, and the teacher could probably handle 16 or 17 safely.
You're gonna change the airflow and that
So-
whole thing too.
Oh my goodness, don't get me.
First time we turned it on, we had fire alarms going off.
Oh my gosh, and automotive has had trouble. There's a real need for updating ventilation, and that's why those ESSER funds are very likely to be applied.
Good.
Because those ESSER funds can be ventilation, air quality control, and all those Johnson control systems that we have, and we can use that money to upgrade those.
And the key reason this is coming forward now is because the state says it's our turn to get in line for the 75% match.
That's right. So every center is on a roster, and every 20 years you're eligible. We're almost at 30 years. So we're in the queue, and the state funds come available. They have told us within a few years they are changing the entire structure of the funding. And it will probably go to a program by program structure. So to get an entire renovation and get all of your programs upgraded to industry standard at one time is pretty much going to be a thing of the past.
Let me ask you this, and getting ahead of ourselves a bit, but what happens to instruction during renovation?
That's a great question. Well, first, I'm excited for community support. So after March 8th, when we're all celebrating and the state money can pour in, then we will be looking at things like scaffolding the project. So they will determine what's the most efficient, what they can build over the summer, and we're going to get the most bang for our buck. So this will, by the way, because the state budget has to be set, so we approve it, then the state budget has to get set. That's when the state will say, yep, we have the money in the budget for your project. So the first time you can access that money is probably 2023. So we're going to approve in 2020, get all the budgetary state things in
2022.
line. What did I say?
2020.
Oh, see, I'm wishing. 2022, then 2023, you'll have the state access to the funding, and then you can start. So let's just use an example. If you built the Natural Resources Animal Science building first, and that could be finished, then you would move programs over there, and then you would take where you've moved kids out of, and you'd put them, and then you'd start renovating there, and you scaffold it that way.
Okay.
There are things that we could save for, like the school budget could potentially handle some things, like if you brought in a learning cottage, things like that. You could fund that and you move students into a classroom. One of the building projects I've worked on in the past, we move students into these learning trailers. There's also an opportunity for businesses to sort of volunteer to host us. So for example, if you like a community space, they could handle like a course like our business class or our engineering where they need computers, but they may be able to hold off on a few projects while their spaces are being renovated. You could have them off site and then you could bring them back on. So business is a good opportunity for that. Engineering, while they're doing Project Lead the Way CAD projects on their computer, we could potentially use other spaces too. And that would save actually a lot of money. Yes.
If you go for a bond,
Mhm.
say $1 million
Yep.
on a bond, when would you do that, this year?
Yes, March 8th
Good,
is
that's
the
what we're
day.
hoping.
Yes,
Yeah.
March 8th, and yeah, I think it would be very doable. Ed will, once we get the numbers on ESSER, we'll be able to provide like tax rate information, which we know everyone would want to know.
Mhm.
And anyone listening who wants to donate some things, we could avoid the bond with charitable donations, but it depends on if we could maybe get some industry partners to really buy in.
It's also worth noting that generally bonds do not come due until after construction is done. So you're looking at a bond that with payment coming in a couple of years when hopefully the economy is a little better and
Right.
our overall tax rate looks better too.
And it decreases over time, which is
Right.
nice. You know, in my hometown, we have a bond, and every year you just see it goes down, down, down. It's really nice. And you know what the time frame is, so you can watch. You know when it's going to disappear. But I think well worth it for the community if we need it.
Any other questions? All right.
Thank you very much.
And
I
you're welcome
appreciate it.
anytime.
Thank you.
Did you get any information on the rec committee meeting the other night, Christine? Okay.
A little bit, and we appreciate that very much.
All right. All right. Like I also said, we'll take a look at the fire alarm ordinance. Chief,
Yes.
this is the same thing we looked at last week, or last
It
week.
is.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, and the changes, again, remind me, really no changes, just clarifications?
Yeah, there were no changes, other than the document is as the same as we submitted last week.
Okay.
Whatever it was.
And this is something we have not had before?
No.
Okay. Anyone have any questions or comments about the fire alarm ordinance? What would be the effective date on this?
Well, I don't know how the ordinance thing works on it, so it would be whenever they adopt it.
It would be up to you. I mean, it's usually upon passage, but I would always suggest that you always give it a little bit of grace so that people have an opportunity to type up if they haven't had a chance.
Well, I'm not sure of how many people have plans in to build multifamily commercial
No, I-
housing or such, but.
And I think that's an important aspect of this. This ordinance applies to commercial owners.
And does
New
it,
construction, not to existing residential.
it just applies to new construction, not existing, correct?
I think that's good.
What would you recommend for a, would you like to see it, with a perhaps effective for any occupancy permits issued after a certain date?
I think that would be, right now, I think that would be fine. I mean, the date could go, I mean, right now we're in what, September, almost October? We could say January 1. Working with Christina over at there's no major commercial property permits that are out there that would
And
be.
we're not gonna get a rush tomorrow coming in to build beforehand.
No. So I would say January 1 would be fine.
Anyone wanna make a motion or such on this? Mr. Spalding?
You do have a large one possible, as we saw with the zoning.
Occupancy before January 1st, I doubt it. But at least this point, they know what they have to consider in putting together their plans and costing it out.
As long as they're aware of it.
Hmm?
As long as they are aware of it. At what size square foot building and or structure does it trigger? What are the triggers for this?
It's occupancy type.
Excuse me?
Occupancy type.
11 units for apartments.
So it's assembly occupancies, apartment buildings, industrial occupancies, certain mercantiles, depending on what the business is.
Okay, those are not facts. Please give me occupancy at what level? 10 people? 20?
No, it's based on the occupancy type of the building. It's not people.
Okay, at what occupancy type does it trigger?
Assembly occupancies, industrial occupancies, educational occupancies, apartment buildings.
With no numbers. In other words, 5 apartments is the same as 40 apartments?
I believe I saw in here 11 units. Is that correct?
I did send the NFPA codes
To,
to Hunter, then to you, I believe.
yes, and I was not interested in looking at, it's kind of like a lawyer. You ask him a question and you get 5,000 pieces of paper. I wasn't interested in that. What I'm interested in is the threshold that triggers this for a particular structure or business.
Anything that's in NFPA 101 or 1 that requires a fire detection system to be tied into the fire department or a central location alarm system, this ordinance would then say, this is the type of key you have to open up the panel, the type of key you have to open up the alarm system. This would not dictate that a person has to put a fire alarm system if it was not required by previous code. This ordinance just dictates the type of key, the standardization of the panel, so that when we go to a fire alarm call, that every panel is the same. Right now we have panels that are all different vintages. This ordinance is simply to standardize the already required fire alarm systems that have to be installed.
I would assume that an electrician...
May I finish? He's not answered my question. I am not interested in the sales talk or the frosting. I want the cake. What is the number of occupancies that triggers it?
I would say you need to ask your electrician, who should know that.
No, I'm asking him. And are you telling me I don't have a right to ask him when you are about to accept this and make it an ordinance? Why then is he here? Why is it done publicly if not? So my question is, for each one of the entities that he is listing, what is the occupancy requirement?
It is not based on occupancy of people. It is based on the type of occupancy that is required. Fire occupancy
What are
load,
those types then? Give me a direct, straight answer.
a school,
Okay, of 10 children?
a school, an educational occupancy. That's how it's broken down in the NFPA code. It doesn't dictate 5 people, 10 people, 20 people.
So all schools,
All schools.
including daycares.
Daycare is not listed as an educational occupancy. It's listed as a daycare occupancy under the fire code.
Okay? So under school, is there anything else in that umbrella?
Educational occupancy, schools, colleges, universities, elementary schools, secondary schools, high schools.
Okay? What businesses beyond that? What are the other categories?
Industrial,
How is that done?
any industrial occupancy has to have a fire alarm system.
Any.
Any, according to NFPA 101. the
So
code.
someone with a machine shop in his garage?
This ordinance is not to enforce that. This ordinance is to
Will you answer the question, please?
What was the question?
Someone in a garage, is that considered an industry if he's got a machine shop in there?
Is it a home-based industry?
I'm asking you that question.
I'm asking you that
In his
question.
garage, yeah.
That's a good question. I mean, now we're talking, really finely defining
It would not,
what industry is.
and it would be based on the definition that's in the fire code. And a single person in a machine shop in their home, in their garage, would not require a fire alarm system.
So the requirement would be single person. So if he has an employee or two employees, that changes it? What's the threshold?
It's not,
If you don't know it, why don't you come back another time when you do know the exact parameters of what you're trying to ask us to approve?
I'm not asking you to approve it, Bert, I'm asking the select board to.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm so ignorant to understand that, but still, I'm a citizen of this community, and I have a right to know what you're doing.
Mr. Chairman, would you like me to further define it?
What's the pleasure of the board?
Well, I think you,
Do you have the fire code you can recommend, which?
NFPA 1, NFPA 101, I sent a whole list.
Mr. Chairman, the
NFPA
problem with that
70.
is the number of words and et cetera that are in it. It's like I said with the attorney. You bury it in paper. I'm trying to get what the real nitty-gritty is out for this community to understand, so that you understand before you go forward and put your stamp on it.
so your last thing is of interest to me in terms of, let's say a machine shop, chief. It has to be operating as a business, doesn't it? Okay, so
Yes.
it's a business orientation where there's 1, 2, 3, 4 people. And so that would require.
So a business occupancy is considered anything under 50 people.
50, okay.
Okay.
So that wouldn't,
So, no,
if Bert's operating a machine shop and
under
in there
50
doing
people or
things-
under, it would not
Yeah,
require anything.
okay.
Okay? It would require a local system just within the building. That's,
Yeah, well, that's,
yeah.
yes.
But
okay, I
to be
understand.
tied into a notification system, it wouldn't be required.
And that's what, is this all about the notification system?
It's all about the notification
Okay.
system. So if a business is required to have a notification system, that's what this ordinance is outlining, what type of key panel system, how it's tied in,
Mhm.
either through the municipal circuit or through a central dialing system.
Okay. And how many towns have this type of ordinance?
Every town I ever worked for.
Okay.
That's-
So,
So is there like a state standard or a national standard by which these guidelines are set?
Yeah, NFPA, the fire prevention, the
Okay.
fire codes.
Right. So, Mr. Chair, this really is not my area of expertise, so I would defer to the chief, but I think it's important that, and I may be incorrect, if he can correct me. This particular ordinance is really intended to determine how a signal is reported and how we instruct development, what type of key system we instruct them to install so that the fire department can access this equipment. I don't believe it's the intent of this ordinance to identify or recommend certain categories of use. Those already exist. Is this correct?
You are correct.
So all the things about what kind of industry, what size of industry, how many employees, that all exists already.
Right.
I think what this ordinance is intended to say is if you fall into any of those categories, this is how you will have a reporting panel. This is the reporting panel we want you to use, and this is the key system that you have to use so that we can use your panel and access your buildings. And that's I believe that's all.
You are correct.
So it doesn't delve into the more like zoning and planning type of
Yeah.
regulation. And those are all interesting questions and legitimate, but I'm not sure they are germane under this particular ordinance.
Okay, then the point is being missed. If we as a community don't know the thresholds of the regulation, then we might not be protected. We could have it if you wanted it, or you're ignoring it and don't want it because you do not know the threshold. So my question to get to, I want to get to the bottom. I find it really interesting that he simply answered the 50, but he wouldn't answer the number for me. If he doesn't think a citizen has rights, then he's a fool.
So what is your question?
What? Okay, my questions have been, and I've said them clearly, so don't ask again, Jeff. I'm going to go through a line of questioning till I know what this affects, so that if I should ever do anything, I have some sort of idea when I trigger it. So, a person in his garage, one person, am I correct, is not subject to this notification
You are
process?
correct.
And that would go all the way up to 50 employees?
You are correct.
Thank you. So, we now have done schools and we've done industry. What other categories are there?
Assembly.
Assembly, okay? That would go down all the way, does that go down to bars and Salt Hill as an example?
Yes.
Is there a criteria which that's
100 or more.
100 or more?
And Salt Hill has an alarm system. It's tied into a notification system.
You see, I use that as an example to find out where the trigger was, and the answer to that is 100 or more. Is it an assembly if somebody has a wedding or something of that nature on their own property?
That's a temporary assembly, no.
So that's the answer to that is no. No to temporary?
That's a temporary assembly occupancy. That's no.
Have we now covered them all?
What's your next one?
Have we covered all of the entities now?
I think so.
Sorry to put your nose out of joint, but if you want to stonewall and hide behind the bushes, that doesn't work with me.
But let me also clarify something. Every answer the chief gave you can change them all. Because all this does is say, if your building falls under a requirement of this section 101 of the fire code that says it has to have an alarm panel, we are saying you put in this type. We're not saying whether you can or not, or what the threshold is. The threshold is set by the national standard. We aren't deciding that here.
Are you cognizant of how to get to the national standards yourself?
Yes, I just went to it and it wants me to set up an account to go in and look at it, so I'm not going that far.
When would you know to go look, Jeff, for what? When would you know when to go and look for something?
Why would I need to go and look for something?
Because you're a citizen who wants to put a machine shop in his garage and do it right. And he doesn't know. You've got.
Then you go, when you go get your
Okay,
building permit.
What you're doing, Jeff, right now is you're defending this man's evasion of answering a citizen's questions correctly and honestly.
No, I'm basically defending the process as it exists. The fire code
I
is,
know they vary. Every code varies. Every law varies. I know that. So why are you telling me that, Jeff? I'm asking for what he's doing right now. I want to know the nitty-gritty of it and how does it apply? Does it apply to my daycare in Kellyville? Does it apply to my warehouse?
let me answer you this way. If it doesn't apply today, it won't apply tomorrow. If you are not required to have an alarm panel in your daycare or your warehouse today, this ordinance will not change that.
Good, thank you. That's more information that adds to that.
It's for new properties, new construction.
Yep.
Right, well, to clarify that, we're looking for the standardization of the alarm panel.
Exactly.
That's
what this ordinance
all this
intended
is
to
saying.
do.
Okay, the fact as to whether or not you have an alarm panel, that's already in the code. You know, we're not changing who is required to have the alarm panel. We're just basically saying we want you to have this standardized type to make it easier for us to respond.
All of that I got, that's why I didn't ask any questions on it, Jeff. All of that I've got.
Okay.
I still want to know where it triggers. For someone who wants to come in now, he's going to have to abide by the pre-existing and the new. I got that.
I would think that's part of what an electrician trains for, and would have their electrical code refers them to the National Fire Code for those parts. You know, I'm not a trained electrician, so I can't tell you exactly how to run that sort of stuff and hook that up. But I'm sure there are craftspeople that's their business. And there's a building inspector that is supposed to know enough to look at that stuff and check. The individual saying, I want to build a machine shop or build an assembly
He
hall.
might not say he wants to, Jeff. He might just do it.
And that,
Without
Then
any
he might
permits.
put one in and then hire somebody else and finally get more in. And then the electrician comes in and tells him, you add that one more person and now you've got to put in this sophisticated alarm system.
But he would be, well,
and that would apply yesterday as well as tomorrow.
Yes, and I don't know what those thresholds are.
who's
So-
overseeing this, Jeff, in the town? If we adopt this ordinance, will it be the building inspector? Will it be the fire chief? Okay, so the fire chief will, so if I'm gonna build something,
Yeah.
normal procedure would be I go, let's say zoning is taken care of it, I go to the planning board, all right? And if it meets a certain threshold, is the planning board gonna then refer it to you?
Yeah, I get a packet from planning and
Okay.
zoning that comes in
Okay,
and says.
so they're gonna
what's-
refer
what's
it to
re-
you.
What's required for this
The
building.
the only fly in the ointment would be what Bert just mentioned, if somebody just goes in and says, hell, I'm gonna do it, and just does it. That probably happens a lot anyway,
Mhm.
so not much you can do about that. That's my 2 cents.
A lot of times if you're doing that, your insurance company's gonna ask,
That's exactly right.
what kind of fire alarm system
Yeah.
do you have?
Yeah.
And it's like, you want insurance?
Yeah.
You're gonna meet the code.
So this is for safety, and also for access if something goes wrong.
Standardization.
Yeah, standardization.
Yeah, it's uniformity, yeah.
Yeah.
Firefighters going to different buildings all the time.
Yeah,
It would be advantageous for us to be dealing with the same
Key.
layout on the key panel,
Yeah.
the reporting boards,
Okay.
so on and so forth. But that's
All right.
really, as far as this particular ordinance goes.
Well, the ordinance is understood. If in fact they go into a large building and they can't get in, have to break in, don't know what's there, I understand that.
yeah.
But the point at which it applies is something that the citizens need to understand, and not always do they. And I guess I will say, as a community, we even make mistakes that way.
Sure.
Gove Road, giving a building permit to a building with that didn't have state approval or town approval before it was started and issuing the building permit. So who the hell's the dummy in that case? So that all said, I am offended by this man's evasion of direct answers to my questions and sending me a manual of hundreds of pages, waste of time. That's all I gotta say.
Barry, you wanna make a motion, or?
Well, give me a second. I move that we adopt the fire alarm ordinance as presented by the chief.
Effective?
Effective, well, that's what I was trying to think about. We want to give some lead time on this, right?
January 1st,
Effective January 1st,
2022.
2022.
You don't wanna make it 2021, do you?
Well, you know, I'm counting years to
2022.
22.
Is there a second?
I will second that.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? All right. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you.
But I do think that was a good discussion yeah. Appreciate you trying to get some answers on the whole thing. And I think the chief finally, responded to it. So,
I responded to you, he gave you the number.
yeah.
He did not give it to me.
Okay.
There's something wrong there.
All right, moving on. All right, minutes from the meeting of August 30th. Do I have a motion on the minutes?
Move to accept.
Any discussion, changes, recommendations? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining. All right. Consent agenda. On the back of your agenda is the consent agenda for tonight. Do I have a motion on that?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? All right. Open forum. This is an opportunity for any member of the public that wishes to address us on items that are not on the agenda. People can speak on agenda items when we get to them.
Thanks, Jen.
Yes, sir. State your name for the record.
Dick Wenzel. I only have one question.
Okay?
That's it. It's short and sweet. It's taken quite a few months for the selectmen to have their phone number. There's supposed to be the email there and the contact. So now you have your phone number, but you don't have an email there. It says go up top and all the email goes to one spot. But you don't have your email there. And I don't understand after all these months why you don't have your email there.
I thought it was there.
It's not there.
Not there?
Not there.
Okay, well, it should be.
We can put it there, but email addresses are first initial, last name at newportnh.gov for any of us.
So it goes to one person.
Yeah.
All
Well,
five
I don't know about on the link, but if you want to send individuals us emails individually, the email address for any of us is our first initial, last name at newportnh.gov.
I would request that it be updated so that our emails are on that.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I was under the impression that it was.
Yeah, I thought when I looked it was, but.
The town's website?
Yeah.
A few days ago, or last week,
Disappeared.
it was on there just fine.
Disappeared again. I checked it tonight.
Oh.
Mm.
I don't know why.
I can't give you an answer to that, but I'll look into that.
Okay, so, Hunter, can you take care of that?
Yep.
Just so you know, I have received emails from you. So I've read everything you sent.
Okay, well,
So
I have pretty much everybody's email that I send out to as a group. But there are some people, because they question me, says, where do you send your email? You know, but but then it was gone. So as of tonight, your email is not on there.
okay, I didn't know that.
I'm gonna get that changed.
I am
Appreciate you calling it to our attention.
basically, if you click on our names, it comes up, send email to, say me, or I clicked on Barry, it said
Yeah.
contact
There you
Barry.
go.
But it still doesn't.
But it doesn't list the actual email address, and it can. That way, if someone wants to, outside of the website, send us an email, they'll have the address. So we should have that listed also.
That's all I have to correct. Thanks for the answer.
All right, thanks. And you're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting.
No, thank you. Good.
Bert.
Jeff, I can concur, and I'd like to ask the question why the numbers were taken off in the first place. I'll leave that alone. And the explanation of first this and that, if someone spells the name wrong, he doesn't get it. If it's on there on the website, there he's got it.
Yes.
So if you really want people to participate in government, you make it easy. You don't make it hard. You don't make it, oh, you gotta go here, you gotta do this, you gotta find this. The one that I have my pet peeve with is the zoning regulations, period. All right, gotta go to the zoning board. And then you gotta go through it, and it's way down at the bottom. If you want people to abide, you make it clear to them. And the website is a great website for being clear. But there are exceptions. And some of them are, I was surprised to see the numbers taken off. I didn't understand that.
I don't either, and I have no problem with them being there, and I thought we had put them back.
Okay,
So,
how did they get up?
I don't know. I think it was just,
Glitch in the program.
I think there's some concern that people were sending things to us and not getting a response. So trying to make it I think what was trying to be set up was like a clearinghouse. But I don't want that. I want them to be able to contact me, and I don't need a third party to take care of it.
Okay, so I'm going to interpret what you just said, that it was going to go in and somebody else was going to answer your mail.
No.
Well, wait a minute. Or had control over whether you got that or not. Something had to be. Because outside of that, Barry, if I send an email to you and I don't send it to the others, why did I do that?
Because you wanted it just to go to me.
That was my prerogative.
Mhm.
And if you, so
I agree with you.
to make it individually available should be. Now, okay, I'll leave it alone.
Not to belabor the point, but I think some of this is quite old or historic, in the sense that I think it was initially set up in the fashion it was to be helpful, because if a select board member goes away on vacation for a couple of weeks, or whatever the case may be, and somebody has tried to reach a select board member about something that they consider to be important or pressing, at least there's one other person, in this case, for instance, Joanne, that knows that there's been a communication and can share it with me or the appropriate office, saying somebody's concerned, the selectman's away. Or I think it was intended to make sure that somebody got a response.
Yeah.
But we're more than happy to set it up so that every
Yeah.
single one of you.
I think we need to go back.
Yeah, absolutely.
The antithesis of that.
We don't care. It was
Yeah.
intended, I think, as an aid
Yeah.
to getting a response to the
Yes.
public.
I don't want to be crass about it, but I don't want somebody else reading. If they send an email to me, I don't want somebody else reading.
Let's also be clear, and we had this pointed out to us about a year ago, that in our board guidelines or whatever, and I'll have to go look and find it, it basically states that when one of us receives an email, we share it with the rest of the board. So.
You know that one.
So we're more than happy to change it, and I will.
And so we may need
personally do
to
that tomorrow.
discuss that at our
Yeah.
retreat.
In reality, anything that is based on town email is public record anyway. So,
And that's one reason we have town email, is because it has that archival
Yeah.
feature.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with the emails going to everybody. I do have a problem with somebody filtering those emails. If somebody sends an email to one of us, all five of us should get it.
Yeah.
But I can understand Bert's point where he's a little more interested in probably a more private conversation with somebody. But if someone else is checking those emails before they come to us, then that I do have a problem with.
Yeah, no, that doesn't happen. It was just a copy. And so you can only do it one of two ways. Either it comes to you and gets copied to, like Joanne,
Mhm.
you can set it up that way, or you can set it up so that it comes to you, and then we have to rely on you to share it with the other five. But we can't tell which way you want to do it. So we'll set it up any way you want. And over time, different select boards have different feelings about these things. So, but we'll be happy to set it up so that your phone number, your address, and your email are prominent under each person's name.
Done. Good. Bert?
So, going back to I send a communication to Barry only. And I don't know that it's going to be shared. And I might have a reason for not sharing it. But Barry can make a decision to share it, because once it's given to him, unless the email had a request that he did not forward it, but most people would not know to put that in there. There can be private communications between select board members. In other words, if you take your email regulation and say, okay, tonight after the meeting I'm going to talk to her about side, and what's he got to do, write it down and pass it to the rest of the board? Or can there be private communications between individuals and a board member? So I raised that question. I'm not asking you to answer it. I'm just putting it out there that maybe it goes a little bit far, that you require it to go to all if it's set to one, without a request to send it to all.
Would a private conversation be a bit different than an email conversation?
I'm gonna have to look at the operational guidelines and handbook a little closer, and as I said, we can
I think
discuss
we
it
need to
next
have,
week.
as
But I
you
think
said, more discussion.
before it got brought up, and this was a case where I think it was with Todd Fratzel, got an email and they expected him to share it with everyone and he didn't. He actually had to go and look and he saw in there where it said it's supposed to be. I think it's a judgment call. If you email like Barry something, and if he feels it's a concern that should be shared with someone else, he'll have to make that call. But if it's just something, where it's asked to be private and all this stuff, it's email. You never know where it goes. You can hope for the best and have confidence in who you're sending it to and such. But certainly if I get something that I think is the rest of the board should know about, I will send it out to them.
And you've done that. I appreciate it.
No one should take that away.
Yeah, no.
If the individual who received the email, if he wants to give it to the world, fine. But if he doesn't, if in fact it is something that he wants just to have for information, then having him share it,
Yeah,
in some cases, may not be appropriate.
right. And hopefully the board member that gets it understands those concerns and those, yeah.
Right.
And you can always put a note on there, please don't share this with John because we want to talk about it. But, anything else? All right, anyone else for open forum? No one else. Moving on, Board of Selectmen communication. Herb, anything?
I have nothing.
Keith?
I have nothing.
Barry?
I have had, not a lot, two people actually, ask me about the depot building. And very simple question I had. Why are we doing that? So that's out there.
Mm-hmm.
One person actually who worked in the building and thought did say to me she thought it would take a lot of renovation to bring that to where we could do something with it. So let's bring that up.
My response to that would be well, we haven't taken it yet. We're still waiting on the final
Yeah.
title work. But it is a low risk facility that we thought, to take it, and if we find it fits with the town's future, it's available. If not, it could go on the market and it could be sold commercially, and there'd be very little, let's say, risk or cost to the town of doing that. You agree?
No, I think I don't think it's a low risk process. I think it's a process that could, we could get up to $50,000 in just renovating it, or getting it to the use, and to me that's a lot of money. So.
Could be sold as is. We choose.
Well, that
cost too
now
much.
that I wouldn't have any trouble with, as long as they know all the things that we might not know at this point about the building. So, depot.
Oh, okay. I thought that was finalized, but the deed work isn't done.
There was a hole in the title history that has to be filled.
I'm just bringing it up because this is communication from people, and that's what I was told.
And, may I?
Sure.
It's, when the communication center was part of it, then for me, it was a good idea. Otherwise, it was not. I go back to being here on the board. We had a building on the corner of Cross Street and Maple, and we were going to take, and we decided not to. And we were going to tear it down. Somebody lives in it today, and it's been all fixed up. So it isn't a good idea for the town to be in the real estate business. So if you're not going to use that building, but you do own it, then I should think you would sell it. $200,000 brought us what? $6,000 a year? So that's $6,000, am I right? At the 200,000 assessment, approximately. Okay, so that's as much as what, $6,000?
In that vicinity, yeah.
So that's a $6,000 loss of revenue. You turn around and sell it to somebody for, let's say 50, just as an example. Now somebody has a starter to go in and it's his responsibility. You got 50, and now it's still going to be assessed for 2. Because the comparables aren't going to change. The comparables for the square footage cost for that building come from all other buildings of its type in the community. So the comparable, because this was sold at a low price, isn't going to change dramatically. So you not only get the 50, and you get the 6.
I'm not sure we got many comparable train stations.
They all have comparables. It's not a train station. It's a brick building.
Building.
Okay, 1 story. Its attributes are in it, regardless of whether it has paint on it or not. So that all being said, I guess I'm too much of a businessman. If I lost money on it, a tenant on it, and I could sell it, let it go.
And that's what we may do. And that's why I say it's low risk. We've put very little into it, but it's an asset that could be turned around and have the town come out ahead and put it back on the tax rolls.
Yep.
There's no doubt about that. Hunter?
Yeah, I just wanted to, for the sake of refreshing everybody's memory, I hope, when we were considering it for a dispatch center, I'm in concurrence that it made some sense, it was needed space and so on and so forth. We've determined that that's probably not going to be necessary. But then we talked about Plan B, Plan C being if the building were not going to be used as a dispatch center, it could be used as an incubator or a rental property. If we had to renovate it, it could easily see renovation costs of north of $100,000. Or someone does leasehold improvements, then it is what it is. And then underlying option A, B, and C, there was option D, and that was sell it. And if it's assessed for 180 or I think it was or 200,000, that we could sell it at a fairly attractive price and get any of our, with the exception maybe of renovating it, be sure to get our costs out of it, and it would perform as Mr. Spalding has described. So just want to make sure that that's the kind of information we've discussed about that building in the past. So we don't know, without further direction from the board, we would attempt to rent that property, and any improvements people would want to make to it would be leasehold improvements for all the reasons that you're identifying. And if that doesn't seem to work out, then you always have the option of selling it, and selling it at a fairly attractive price. If it's really worth $200,000, you can sell it for 50 or 75, and the buyer might feel very comfortable at that level, feeling that they got the building at the right price, and then feel comfortable putting additional money into it to renovate it to whatever purpose.
Do we have money going out due to the title issue?
Not at present. We have an attorney reviewing the title issue, and the property owner has agreed to send you a copy of this. I can't remember if it was
pay up to a certain amount of money.
They were going to pay to a certain amount, and then we split beyond that, or we're splitting the first $4,000 or $5,000. So I mean, it's.
I think
I don't recall exactly, but it was a fairly small number.
there's a time gap in the title
Right. There's a
that we
couple
were
of flaws.
researching. There was some
Yeah.
process to go through to, see if anything one came forward. And I think you mentioned that the attorney we had looking found the missing documents.
Yeah, we believe the missing link has been found, and so the matter will progress more quickly and at a lower cost. I don't think we'll have more than a few $1,000s into it.
And certainly,
but I can't remember.
in turning it over to resell it, it's easier to do that if there's no gap in the title.
Yeah, I understand that.
Yeah, nobody's selling it to anybody until the
So,
title's resolved.
I mean,
But I think we've got
we
that-
haven't taken possession of it yet. And,
Correct. But I think we have it sorted out, so it should come to the table before the end of December easily, probably.
Just bringing forth information that,
yeah.
communication.
Yep.
Keith?
I do have a question. I did walk around and behind it, and it has been vandalized.
Right,
Does the current owner have insurance to cover?
yes,
So we're all set there.
that's correct. We're not, certainly not our expense.
Yeah.
So we're good.
Anything else?
Almost it. Thank you.
Keith?
I'm all set.
Jeff, I did have one thing.
Okay.
Just wanted to mention, we had another person involved in our athletic department, got another award. Jeff Miller, our athletic director,
Yes.
Yeah.
received Athletic Director of the Year, I believe it was.
Yes, for the.
Yep.
Yes.
Well
Outstanding.
deserved.
Just
Yeah.
wanted to
Very
mention
good.
that.
Thank you.
Yep, good, very good for Jeff. He does a good job up there.
Does.
I think I'll just mention that next Tuesday night, the Board of Selectmen are holding a retreat with the town manager at 5:30 here in the Selectmen's meeting room. We'll be looking at direction for the next year. So, and that, I think the notice went out today on
You
that.
did. Yep. We're getting pizza?
Whatever you'd like.
And I think that's
Steak.
that is all I have. Hunter, anything?
No, thank you.
Okay. All right, moving on to informational. We did A. B, I'll just say a group of us got together last Monday night to talk about starting up the community center committee again and looking forward on that. And the consensus of the group was that with the renovation and work at the tech center and the bond that they may have to put forward this year, that it was not the best time to bring forward a second bond. And it was the consensus of that group was to delay any, I guess, action toward bringing a community center to town meeting until 2023. So the group is going to try to get together again. What was that? The 20, the
28.
the 20 October 25th. It would have been the fourth Thursday in October to perhaps see about starting work on, I guess, long-range efforts to move forward for the following year.
We also wanted to, we're gathering some numbers too.
Right, by then, Hunter, you are getting updated numbers from Red Loaf, which
Yes.
we should have by the end of the month.
Yes,
So
actually, I'm surprised I don't have them right now.
that'll tell us what construction costs look like today, but perhaps not what they'll look like in 6 months or a year, but
No, there'll be more. That's my best guess.
and that's where we are with the community center. The need for it has not changed. The concern was in bringing forward 2 capital projects in the same year. The voters may not appreciate it, and it could impact both of them. So. Bert?
Where you had a significant amount of pledged money for the community center. Are those pledges matured, gone, or are they still there?
We don't know.
In reality, Hunter, you're contacting those people, am I right?
Yes, I'm preparing a letter to all
Yeah.
the donors, giving them an update, and I'm sure that there'll be some folks that will,
Back out, but others will stay.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's really where we are with it.
Okay.
He's sending information out to those people and notifying them.
And we-
And so your kicking the can down the road will be part of that letter in I would assume.
Yes.
Yeah, I think the important thing is people to understand, we still want to move forward with this. And we're still going to be looking at a variety of different things, but we're just putting it off because we want to work with the school department, and then our hope would be that they turn around and help us when we get ready for the community center. At least be on our side with it.
The school district has an opportunity for 75% funding of what's needed for renovations of the tech center, and that kind of return on the investment is not something they should pass up. So. And as I said, there's concern about bringing 2 capital projects forward in the same
Right.
year.
I got all that. I got all that.
Yeah.
It's hard to say then that the rec center needs to have a new place when in fact it is being kicked down the road. Yes, last year, this year, and another. So.
The need hasn't changed, but I mean, say, for lack, of a better word, the politics of bringing forward something at the same time as the school may not be looked upon favorably by the community. I think taking the extra time, people can actually perhaps refamiliarize themselves with the condition of the current rec center, and so they can get an understanding as to just what some of the needs are. I mean, a new rec center, community center has been, say, the top of the list of needs for this community for probably 15, 20 years. And, I think the work that was done in 2018 was the, I guess, most comprehensive work that had been done. The committee at that point came up with what they felt was a viable plan that met the needs of the community. They looked at the cost involved, various options for cost, and pretty much costed out how to build a community center that meets the needs of the community, that the community would be proud of, yet they felt that, with adequate donations and grants that the community can support. And since then, I mean, we've had the pandemic that basically shut us down as far as being able to meet people and bring things forward. And we've run into the time frame for the tech center at the high school. I mean, I feel the sooner we get the community center built, the better it will be for the community. It'll cost less instead of putting it off. And honestly, our rec center is, it's has a lot of deficiencies that is certainly not worth fixing, and it's time to move to a center that meets the needs of the community and the kids in the community.
Yeah, well, you just said it's time to do it, and but it's time to delay it. The bond was approximately $3 million, if I was correct.
3 to 3.5, somewhere in there.
Okay.
That's what we were looking at.
And what was the passage percentage of voters that voted for it?
Less than 50%.
I think it was like 46%.
47, 48, 46.
At the time, you could say it was rushed because by the time we had everything together, we were already into winter and such, and there wasn't an opportunity to really promote it in the community properly, sell it to the community. We had like Keith here, lives next door to where it was going to be built, and he didn't understand how it would work.
I didn't understand the condition of the existing rec center. There's a lot of information I just didn't know, and it seemed like a lot of money. I'm not crazy about the location still, but if it's one of those things that's going to benefit the community, and that's the best location, then I'm going to probably support it.
See, we need to do this with the other 4,000 voters in town.
Well, I don't want my point to be lost here. If you say that it's been kicked down the road all of these years, and a great effort was put into it, and it failed, and now you're gonna kick it down some more, it's gonna be hard for you to sell that banana. It's been around for a while. So, a lot of effort was put in, a lot of money came forward, and the ball is now being left alone, and,
Well,
so, wait a minute.
Go ahead.
I'm, should think that the utmost thing is to know how much of the donations come forward, you'll know that, before you make that decision. And maybe make sure that those people understand that it's being kicked down the road again. Because to me, I do see the competition between the school and the town. But if you want a fire truck, you're going to bond that fire truck, even though they're doing their vocational center. So, that being said, I'm not so sure that your committee really wants to get this done.
The people that were there, I wouldn't call it a committee yet. It was basically just people who would be part of a committee going forward, and they all expressed a commitment to the center, but there was a consensus there that, as I said, bringing forward two projects in the same year, people would start looking at the tax impact of one and the other, and we could jeopardize both of them. And that was consensus.
I understand that completely.
Yeah, and
But I also understand that everything that you bring forward here, whether it's construction, a fire truck, or whatever, we got to do it now because next year it's going to cost a lot more money.
Yes.
We have heard that so many times, and so right now you're not singing that song. So, positive mental attitude. I want to get. Wait a minute, Jeff. I want to get something done. I get it done. Period. And if that means pushing things to the side, I get it done. I'm a doer, I guess you'd say, but I believe in the attitude. If you really don't want to attack it and do it, don't get in the game. Stay on the sidelines. And so, that being said, I am surprised that we aren't coming forward with it. And let it compete. If we really need this in the community and we really put our heart in it, then we have a chance of getting it. So, that's my opinion.
I will say I was the lone holdout for going forward with it. Okay? But the consensus, as I said, of the majority, everyone else in the room was, this would not work this year.
I got it.
So,
I got it. What I'm saying to you, but you're not here. I've heard you 3 times you told me about the consensus, so I've got the consensus.
yes.
But what you're not getting out of what I said, I don't think this group wants to go forward. And if that's the case, it's a failure from the get-go. It's not going to happen. You have to say you want to do it.
And that's what I hope the next meeting will bring out, just how firm people want to do it. Because in reality, if they bond the school project this spring, and we bond ours next spring, it's still going to be 2 or 3 years, and you're going to end up paying on both of them over several years. Just the fact that one starts a year later. I mean, it's, both projects are, I think, critical to the future of Newport. But some people just don't want to see two capital projects in the same year, and that's what, came out of that meeting. It wasn't just, people at that meeting, but people they knew and what they had heard.
So maybe the fact that we are going to have a very small tax increase, or probably no tax increase this year, has no bearing on the attitude of the voters coming forward next year?
We don't know that.
We don't know.
And I talked about this last time when I was talking about going forward, because at least on the town side, we've by having small tax increases or even a decrease, I feel we are building capacity in order to absorb a capital project like this. And also giving how property values have been with the reassessment coming up, it may actually benefit us by, bumping up everyone's property value so we can cut the tax rate and everyone feels good about that. They don't
add, wait a minute.
We all pay the same, but we feel better about it.
Wait a minute, Jeff. You raise the value, and what happens here? They're not stupid. They got it. So the reval is not gonna help your situation.
Well, it might, because people feel they've got more value in their homes, so they.
Price of 2x4's gone up 50%, and you think that the price of houses aren't gonna go up? Of course they are.
Right.
And so your grand list grows, but the money is still coming from where? The little guy who's paying it?
Oh, everyone pays the same amount, but they're paying at a lower rate because we said their house is worth more.
I know.
And,
I know. I wanted one banana, I gotta buy a dozen, and the one banana would have cost you less than the dozen.
I would much rather have it that way, a much higher assessment with a lower tax rate. Look at New London. Their property assessments are ridiculous, but on average, you pay less in taxes.
So a couple of years from now, when your taxes start moving up and your value is up here, and then the other side starts coming back up.
I mean, also as far as, perhaps some people who have made pledges dropping out, I've also heard from some businesses that 2 years ago, you mentioned community center, they weren't interested. They are now showing some interest. So it goes both ways. We may lose some people that were interested, but I think we may pick up some more. Also, we've now got Christine Benner upstairs, and she can smoke out grants probably as well as anyone I've seen. And so we may find some grant opportunities that we can apply. So,
I think
yes.
the big thing is going to be getting the community on board. And that's just such a big unknown. It's not a matter of, if we want to do it, let's do it. Collectively, the town and all its taxpayers have to say, let's do it. That's the big obstacle.
People got to recognize that our current rec center is on its last legs, and that it needs to be replaced not only to benefit the students and citizens that currently use it, but to be able to absorb those that have not been able to get in.
Then why aren't you going forward now if that's the case? I'm not going to try and change what you do. I'm just trying to point out to you and the public that's listening.
I would agree
If you really want it and you really need it, and the need is there, you do it. You need a fire truck, you do it. So I'm questioning now your need, and I was thoroughly on board the last time, to the point at which it would have been supported, and the plug got pulled. So, if you really want it done, you get it done. And so
Well,
that's all I wanted to say. And so the rest of it is, you're digging yourself a bigger hole because you're saying it's needed, we got to do it, it's on its last legs, your own words, but it's getting kicked down the road. So that being said, we probably will have a significant increase in our assessments because of what's happening. And 110103 is turning out to be a gold mine. I'm changing the subject. Crazy Ed's has sold. Bremco,
The old location, right?
excuse me,
His old location.
the original.
Right, yes.
Crazy Ed's, not the
Not the newest.
right? Bremco, my next door neighbor. You don't see him, but it's a $7 to $8 million business. Flurry's, the furnace place across from Flurry's. So all of that should have an effect, at least on all commercial entities. as you go into comparables. So we may see an opportunity here that we probably shouldn't have kicked the can down the road. So how many more times have I got to say it to get the point across? I think you made a wrong decision. And I think a consensus, to me, of the people that were there, not knowing the people that were there, is not looking at the whole picture. If you really want it, Jeff, go for it and get it. Do it.
Let's see what happens next month when we get together again and see how things are looking.
Yep. PMA.
25th, see you there.
No. No. PMA. Positive mental attitude. Gonna do it? Do it.
I think you should be there as a motivational speaker.
Excuse me?
I think you should be there as a motivational speaker. I'm feeling pretty good right now.
No, I do it all of the time. And to take on the other responsibilities is not a necessity. I'm just soon stand in the background and somebody else do it. I do too much here as it is. Matter of fact, there ought to be 3 people on this bench. There isn't. So Keith, I really thought that we needed this, and I supported it, and was going to go all the way with it. Quite frankly, it would have had its own flyer. And I went to work on it. I actually was given the name of a guy in New London who was a guy, and I called him on the phone, and he was going to do the text, and we were all set. And then didn't happen. So.
I agree with you, but this is where we're at with it.
What is the cost of going forward with and asking the voter to vote on the town side? It's not a lot of money.
What do you mean, the cost? The cost may be that they get scared off by seeing us asking for a bond of maybe 3 or 4 million.
No, direct costs.
Direct cost? What do you mean?
Direct costs. How much does it cost you to put it on the warrant and ask for it?
You mean just putting another paragraph on the warrant?
Well, what you ever would put. I mean, if you decided you were going to do this and your existing donations are still in place, what's the cost? Does it cost you $100,000 to get it on? No. Would it cost you maybe $1,000 to get it on? Probably. And that would be doggone near the whole entire cost to ask the question again. Let the voters decide, rather than a consensus of people there that are unknowns, don't know their names right now. Let the voters decide. You might be surprised. Geez, big tax increase this year didn't happen, and now maybe we got enough room to do this, and we have the donations that we had, plus we got more. I don't know. PMA. W. Clement Stone and Norman Vincent Peale.
Yep. Well, I agree with you.
All right.
But I can't, push a rope upstream.
Well, sometimes. Okay, last one, and then I will shut up because I'm going to leave. NASA did all of what they did for us, which was fantastic. But then, finally, the government said, we're going to do something else. And here's Elon Musk, who puts the units into space and brings it back down and lands it like a pencil on the eraser. And he's done it time and time again. So, look at it differently. Get it done. Try. All right, I gotta go. Sid.
So
I
find,
hate keeping you
find
guys
someone
up.
who wants to put their name over the building in big letters and let them pay for it.
Say that again?
Find someone who wants to put their name over the front door of the building and let them pay for it.
I think you've already had people that did that, to the extent,
That they could, yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
and it was wonderful. And some may not be here to see it. For less than $1,000 and some effort. Good night, guys.
All right. Good
What
night.
else is on here?
All right. Anything else on community center?
When is your next meeting on that?
The fourth Monday in October, 25th, I think it is. I'm gonna try to get people together.
I think I'm gonna try to get there.
Yeah. All right, review of town common rental agreement. This, I think, was brought up because of the wording on there about driving on the common.
Yeah.
And basically it states, the user shall ensure that heavy machineries are not driven or parked on town properties. Passenger cars may be parked on the common parks and fields for the purpose of loading and unloading only, but cannot remain for more than 1 hour. That was a question people had an issue perhaps with. I mean, it came up because of the farmer's market. I mean, certainly we have some people that pull under the common to unload, and then they're supposed to go and park elsewhere, but times over the summer we've had just people parking on that side. Is this something we need to readdress, or is there a solution, or is it just just the way the common is, the way people are, and we need to try to limit it as much as we can, but sometimes people will pull up right in front of the no parking sign.
Unless we're willing to stand around to monitor each one of these events, I don't see any way of stopping or policing it. I do, however, if somebody notices it and we have some way of documenting it, we can pull those waivers for the use fees. And let those people know, whoever is sponsoring these events, if they won't police themselves, then they will be paying their user fees, and their future use may be in jeopardy.
Should we consider maybe putting some curbing on that side of Park Street, which would...
That came up at the conservation meeting, our last conservation meeting, and that would benefit the runoff from Park Street onto the common, which is damaging the trees because of the water and because of the salt content.
Yeah.
Then you got what kind of curbing, and if you put curbing, then you're not going to get people, you're going to restrict people's ability to go onto the common to unload.
Right. I mean, it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. I mean, what's...
I guess it depends on if we're interested in preserving the common and keeping it the way it is, then the curbing is probably the best way to go, and people will just have to unload from the street.
Right, but then, Park Street is now as it is, it means...
Probably closing Park Street.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
it makes it, unless we decide to,
If you're gonna do something like that, can you, like where the edge of the asphalt is now, can you maybe encroach a couple of feet in?
we can, it's all our land.
Right, well, I would say
You
from
mean
a cost effect.
Widen Park Street so you can
Just
have
enough
park-
so that you can get parking on that side.
Yeah, but then
without-
you're pushing up against the trees
The
and
roof
such.
structures,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah.
Those trees down the backside are going right out to the edge of the road now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or, do we just live with it and invest in maintaining the common as best we can?
I like Herb's idea. I mean, how is it, I'm not sure how that's all structured. Is there a single entity that brings in the vendors?
Well, the farmer's market is an organization, and what they do is they ask for a waiver on the rental fees and such for the season, because basically, a lot of their vendors don't make that much, and it would, our feeling in the past has been having them there brings people out to the common who would,
Mm-hmm.
we look at the benefit of having the traffic there. Though at times I'm not sure how much traffic we're actually getting right now for the farmer's market, but I've noticed a couple vendors who've always been there aren't there anymore, so it's a trade-off. Do we accept the lack of the fees and perhaps some damage to the common for the benefit of having the farmer's market there and the traffic that it brings? But then again, this summer there hadn't been too many, but it used to be, go back pre-pandemic, there used to be an event on the common like every other Saturday in the summer. So you always had a lot of traffic there, and that would also involve people setting up and all, but you also had a fair amount of foot traffic too. And that gets into the question, well, what's the purpose of having a town common? And realistically, it's into September. It's not like we're looking at the start of another season of traffic there.
I think I feel that going forward, probably just putting more pressure, or trying to put more pressure on those users that are not policing themselves. When we find a violation, they're going to have to be made aware that future use is going to cost them.
Yeah, some vendors that are on the Main Street side, they park out on the street and manage to get their goods in. And perhaps on the days of the farmer's market, parking along Park Street should be, turned into a loading and unloading zone, at least before the start. So, Hunter, any thoughts? Should we just pave over the whole common and that would do away with the problem?
Yeah, that would solve some of the problem, create others perhaps. Well, we still think that allowing, for instance, taking intermittent landscape tie guardrail patterns along the Park Street side, have a segment, leave a segment open but not open enough so you get a car in between, but for people, pedestrian traffic and so on and so forth, and ring the common with intermittent barriers with a gate at the end so that appropriate users can get on at the appropriate time, and leave a couple cutouts for some food trucks, for instance, a little greater depth. But if I think if it were up to us, we'd probably gravel half a car width in from the pavement so that we could capture some of that runoff, and then put our landscape ties or bollards around the common, and we didn't have to worry about it again, at least for the car traffic. It would change the appearance of it. I'm not sure it would change it for the worse. Most parks and commons have barriers of some sort. I don't think there's many that you can just pull off the pavement and drive right onto the lawn, and certainly not in urban centers.
And again, in the wintertime when the skating hut is up, there's actually, that north end of the common is turned into a parking lot. And sometimes that becomes quite muddy. So that's being redone every springtime.
In terms of people that are, when they apply to like a waiver or whatever, or let us know they're going there, if we put into the application, we want to know who's responsible for guarding against heavy equipment being on the common. Put that right there and you know who it is. And stress to these people that that has to stop. And I know, I mean, a lot of these people that are really community-minded and trying to get something going for the community don't feel good about having to speak up, but they need to. And so we need, maybe in the application process, who is going to help, who's going to be responsible for making sure there's no heavy equipment on the thing.
And the only other comment, I mean, as long as there's no physical barrier to parking, you will have a police challenge. Not literally a police challenge, but you'll have to have a human there, whether it be a police officer or a responsible party or whoever there to enforce that policy. And as long as that's the case, it's going to be a challenge.
I know, but at least it's a step.
And also concerts, Sunday evening concerts, bringing in sound equipment and stuff.
Yeah.
All that stuff. It's normally they back right up to the bandstand for that.
But then somebody should say, okay, you did that, now move. Don't leave it there.
So I think those groups are pretty good because you can't leave a car in front of the bandstand or you block the view.
Yeah. I mean, these are good community-minded people that are doing this, but there's a problem.
And as I said, there's trade-offs, versus access and bringing the community together with these events versus, the maintaining of the common ground.
And I've got to say, I for one have been fairly lenient as far as waiving fees. I mean, a lot of these organizations and events, have a good purpose. I had my eyes opened a little bit when I saw some of the profit that some of these events were bringing in.
Yeah.
That were claiming poverty when they said they couldn't pay the fees or weren't. Well, there was quite a difference there from what I thought and what actually is taking place on many of these events.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think we got a complete list, or do we have a complete list yet? No.
No, that was a sample. I was going around at that time.
It kind of opened my eyes.
Yeah.
To the point where I
Some of these
think I'm a little too lenient.
poor community organizations have quite a bank account.
Yes.
So, all right. So, brainstorm this some more.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, it's it's whatever gets done as a trade-off. People will have to adapt to it. People will complain because we change, perhaps change the look of the common or something. But
the intermittent barrier, maybe. I mean, you're still going to have good access at any point around the common, as far as foot traffic. It'll help keep some of
Until somebody wants to get on there and moves the barrier and then just backs over.
No, the ones we have in mind will be planted in the ground.
Oh, okay, good.
But, you see them, it's the low wooden guardrail kind of style, 2 uprights and a section. And then we'd skip a section, so there'd be nothing. You could walk for 8 or 10 feet. It would be open, then you have another section. And then somewhere at strategic points, you'd have it wide enough in a gate, so you could let vehicles onto the common if you wanted to.
my concern with that is if you have like a gate, you end up basically creating a path.
Yeah.
With one access point, everyone drives that way, so it's.
Yeah, well, the idea would be, you certainly wouldn't let people drive on for the farmer's market. It would be for once or twice a year kind of events.
Mm-hmm.
And we would typically gravel the initial path, because for that reason, because it concentrates the access in one location. But, entirely up to you. It's a conundrum. And,
Yeah. Or do we accept, we just get some wear and tear at one end there, but the north end is kept more pristine for that kind of. All right. So do we want to consider rewording this or at some point?
I would say that's open for discussion, maybe some perhaps at the retreat that we can get quickly.
Okay.
And it's going to be for the future anyway. So.
Right. Okay. Enough on that. Then Fire alarm ordinance, adoption of updated personnel plan. Everyone's had a copy of the personnel plan to look at. Hunter, you want to bring us up to speed
Yeah,
on?
just very quickly, this is not the overview or overwrite that you asked me to do. This is only bringing the last printed edition into current day with the changes that you've made in the last couple of years. For instance, you adopted the, I believe you adopted a harassment plan, slip and trip policy, things like that. So what we've taken is the pieces that you've already approved and integrated them into the package so that when we distribute the package, it's a full package. It's not the full package plus this, plus this, plus this. It's now all integrated together.
So the things that are in red
Yeah, the changes.
Other changes.
are changes.
Yes, are the integrated.
Okay, so they aren't new,
No,
they're integrated in. This isn't a new policy, it's an integrated thing.
right. We're just putting it all in one document.
Yeah.
Now, I thought the cyber policy was new.
That one is one that was recommended by Primex
Okay.
that we follow, but it hasn't been formally integrated into the plan.
Okay, and I actually had a question on health insurance, section 12.
Right, and that should reflect the current health plan.
Right, however, currently we have 2 health plans.
We actually have many health plans, but the one that we sponsor is the one that's here.
Okay.
Employees can go and buy their own through
Right,
Primex.
okay, and I'm thinking of the police union that are still under a different one, but that's basically because they chose to stay on that one.
That's correct.
That's not the one the town offers.
Right.
Okay. And that was my only
Yeah,
concern.
individual employees can go buy whatever plan they want through Primex, but they have to pay the difference.
How often is this personnel plan reviewed with people?
Reviewed with people.
With our people?
Whenever a new employee is hired, they're given a copy and they sign off on receiving it. And whenever we have, for instance, the slip and trip policy and things like
Yeah.
that, and the harassment policy, those are all distributed electronically to the staff, and the staff signs off on each piece that, as it's
Yeah.
adopted,
Do we-
announced in its entirety.
Okay, I just, as I read through this, there's a lot of stuff that relates to harassment,
Yeah.
things of that nature.
Mhm.
I just want to make sure people truly understand it. I mean, they can say they sign off, but
Yeah,
they need to know this stuff. 'Cause,
Absolutely.
I mean, you got some pretty straightforward wording here about
Mhm.
what you can do and what you can't.
yeah,
And
we,
they need to be aware of it.
we do have ongoing employee training programs. And in fact, on that particular topic, they just had a harassment training program for all staff. It was mandatory. That was during the month of, it may have been at the beginning of this month, or if it wasn't, it was the tail end of August.
Okay.
And we do that on an annual basis, and and certain categories, certain trainings are mandatory.
Have we straightened out, I mean, for a while we're having issues with unauthorized absences and people getting paid for it. Has that pretty much been dealt with? That was one of the areas you wanted to really look into.
Yeah,
so.
I believe so.
Okay.
Never say never, but
Yeah,
I believe so.
Yeah, I know it was an issue.
Yeah, I believe the instances that you were referring to are some years old now, and
They are.
Yeah, I think the scale and scope of those have been addressed.
Okay, good. Do you want to vote on this tonight, adoption of this tonight?
It's up to you, whatever you're comfortable. It's a fairly lengthy piece of
It is.
work, and so if you want to, chew it over for another meeting, that's fine. So what I think the board has tasked me to do is sometime the next year to actually rewrite that, start
Rewrite it.
changing policies,
Yep.
changing benefits and coverage and things like that, which will be a little bit more involved, and it would be my intent to involve the staff in formulating some of those some of those proposals.
Good.
But this is just, it's intended to be pretty much an update, and just kind of sweeping all the little pieces and parts that have been adopted over the last couple of years into the primary document.
And
So-
all personnel will get a copy of this new, or
Yep.
this integrated.
Yeah, and it's available, I believe it's online and readily available.
Okay, good.
we stand with this? Did you guys pass it yet?
You're the road.
I have one comment, another comment on the cyber policy. This policy is applicable to all departments and users of IT resources and assets. Then under incident response training, provide incident response training to information system users consistent with assigned roles and responsibilities. It took me a while to figure out that that's basically the people who are using the computer systems. So,
And we often do that with, in accordance or in
Right.
cooperation with Primex
and that's basically wording from Primex.
yes,
So it probably
I believe it's verbatim.
And my other concern with that policy is on the other page for the reporting. You basically have Paul Brown listed here than the IT support services.
Yep.
I mean, and you have a couple phone numbers there. Is it proper to actually list a person to call there? Or
No, it's not.
should that be changed to a generic reporting number that then it would forward it to the...
Well, it should just come to our office and then we deal with it accordingly. But so we do intend, it was brought to my attention that was on there. I didn't, nobody caught that. So we'll remove that reference.
And set it up, but some of this stuff may come in at late at night, so perhaps, would it be appropriate to set up so that dispatch gets notified, and if someone calls with, like the fire department says, our computer's
Sure.
crapped out,
Yeah, we can do that.
perhaps a number, an after hours number. And then dispatch would say, to contact you or whoever does IT for us.
Yeah, that's always subject to change, so we'll figure out something.
Right,
So-
it should be a number that's irrelevant to the actual person who
Right.
gets called.
Yeah, so I mean, if you guys would be more comfortable, there's no rush to adopt this tonight. We'll work on some language for that particular item and you can roll it over to your next meeting.
You want to get that language done first, or?
Yeah, I think we should table it until.
Yeah, we can do that.
All right, you want to make that a motion, or you?
Move that we table the adoption adoption of the updated personnel plan until the next meeting and changes.
Yeah.
And see the changes that are made.
Second.
Any discussion? All right, and our next meeting is scheduled for October 4th.
Yep.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining? All right. Anything on Turkey Hill? Or we already covered that already.
No, I think that's 99% done. The site is in good order, I believe, and the final documents, since a fair amount of time has passed since the last round, have gone to council, and council was going to endeavor to get those final documents to me for tonight, but wasn't able to finish them. So I suspect they'll be ready for
So
this
the
meeting.
plan is, they have built the system.
Yep.
And on land they bought. And they will donate the land to the town.
Correct.
And they will manage their system on our land.
Yes.
And an agreement is we will be buying power from them for the next 20-some years
Yes.
at a rate that is favorable compared to what we're currently paying. And it will provide, it'll offset the electrical need for the town of Newport.
Yes, the output from that particular site combined with the output from our North Newport site together are intended, and I believe offset our carbon footprint, if you will, or produce as much power as we consume. So we are basically a net zero.
Is that guaranteed by the company? That the operation will, like for instance, they could say they're going to give you 100%.
Yeah.
Well, if we then go out and put electric space heaters in every
Yeah,
space in the town.
it's based on
turn them
today.
on.
I mean, it produces enough power to offset what we consume today.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, today. But when we renovate the wastewater treatment plant, we put in a bunch of new pumps and blowers, hopefully that'd be more energy efficient. But if we add additional pumps and blowers and
Yeah,
things of
so
that
it's
nature.
as is today.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I don't see our demand changing an awful lot. The wastewater treatment plant is kind of a misnomer, and in the design of these two, they are aware of those plants, and we made some preliminary engineering estimates as to how much additional power might be drawn, and the premise is still the same. We will generate enough to offset what we foresee as plant designs up there with.
Good. And at some point after the wastewater treatment plant gets updated and it does draw more electricity, there's the potential, at least the land available, to put more solar arrays up there since it's
I was
just
gonna ask,
heating.
is it
State-
expandable?
Yeah, well, it is, and state law has recently changed to allow larger arrays. They went from the 1 meg limit to now I believe they're up to 5 meg limit, so there is an opportunity for us to add on.
It's a lot of power.
And the problem with the field at North Newport, why we didn't put everything there as we originally wanted, was because Eversource couldn't take the capacity. So we're feeding directly into wastewater treatment plant, so it's more or less, it's staying off the grid, right there. Is that correct?
Yeah, stop the meter.
It's, they couldn't take more power to feed the rest of the
Yeah,
county.
if you're producing more, the
That's
meter,
working
it's like the
okay.
meter's running backwards.
Yeah. Well, yeah,
They
and
send you a check.
Eversource's
Took a little-
equipment
took a
couldn't
little
take any more power.
beating
They were
to
maxed
work
out
out this.
up there.
I'm told it's, all the accounting people are happy now.
Good.
That's
Okay.
what I'm told.
All right. Anything else on this? Any appointments?
No.
No committees we want to appoint John to?
No, thank you.
All right. In that case, I'll entertain a motion to go into non-public session under RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, small e, litigation.
So moved. Second.
Herb?
Aye.
Keith?
Aye.
Barry?
Aye.
And I'll vote yes. All right, and we will be making no decisions after this, right?
That's correct.
So we'll just.